My name is Casper in Edmonds, and I work for the ILO. For those of you who might not be familiar with the International Labour Organization, we are the specialized agency of the United Nations that deals with employment and labor. Through our international labor standards and by working closely with ministries of labor and employment, with employers and workers' organizations, we promote full and productive employment, decent working conditions, social protection, and a just transition to environmentally sustainable societies and economies for all. We've had a few technical issues this morning. Participants are still coming in. We will be recording this session and it will be posted online for those of you who will have missed it. And yeah, let's get cracking. So I'm honored to moderate this session today, which is organized by our partners and friends in the Platform for Accelerating the Circular Economy. Together with PACE, we are pleased to contribute to the successful World Circular Economy Forum, which this year is hosted by Rwanda for the first time in Africa. Now, for the next hour, we will be hearing from everyday heroes, how they're making the circular economy work for all. We hope that at the end of this session, their stories and their experiences will inspire you to take action so that together we can accelerate the shift towards the circular economy and shape a circular economy that works for all. Now, despite technical difficulties, despite this being a virtual session, we want to make it an informative, interactive, and fun session. So once we've heard from our excellent panelists, the experts, the heroes, I hope you will contribute your views, your questions to the conversation about how we can ensure a just and job-rich transition to the circular economy. But first, before I turn to our panelists, I would like to ask my friend, Ramona Liberoff, the new Executive Director of PACE, to kickstart our conversation. Ramona's job is a big one. It is to manage the stakeholders within PACE, who include leading corporates, governments, academics, and innovators, to achieve the goal of doubling circularity. Over to you, Ramona.
Casper, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And I'm very, very pleased to be here to open this crucial discussion. I think over the last couple of days, I've had the good luck of being present at WCEF in beautiful Kigali. And I must say that my observation here among the friends in the circular community is similar to that I have seen elsewhere, which is we need to make absolutely certain that a just transition has a very clear and present meaning in all of our discussions of the circular economy. I think one of the challenges with a complex transition like the circular economy is that it's positioned right now primarily as a climate and environmental transition. Of course, with links to biodiversity, we often hear the phrase just transition in remarks, but we do not always know what it means, and it isn't always connected, for example, to strategies. So I'm delighted that today we'll be able to hear from some leaders who are making sure that it's very thoughtfully included in their own strategies from whatever perspective they're coming from. With any transition, for example, digital transformation and renewable energy, there will absolutely be, in a way, winners and those we need to take care of during the transition. There may be, as many reports have suggested, a net gain of jobs from the circular economy and new, clean, green jobs in repair, refurbishment, better recycling, for example. But there will also be a significant requirement to upskill workforces, to figure out just compensation and structure incentives. We've seen in previous transitions how politically challenging it's been, even for small workforce transitions. For example, for Germany and the US to move away from mining. This can cause enormous friction in politics, among citizens. It can really be the test of the legitimacy of a government's stance as regards their workers. The scale of the opportunity is large, but it's also extremely compelling. We heard yesterday from on a fellow panel that I was on, that in Nigeria, for example, Israel from Hinckley said two things. First of all, that the amount of e-waste in Nigeria is dramatically undercounted, and that currently there are only 2 formal recyclers in the economy in Nigeria. What a phenomenal opportunity, but also what a phenomenal challenge to get it right. And when we think about governments and what they have to do in very complex and very important transition, is they need to think really in an integrated fashion about the challenges and the opportunities, and to keep people at the heart of it. We think about value chains, and it sounds extremely neat when it's laid out on a page or a roadmap, but actually value chains are made out of valuable people. And these people are in very, very different environments and contexts. There have been some governments that I think I wanted to call out as inspiration to others. For example, the Philippines has been very thoughtful in weaving in green jobs, training, finance into its medium and long-term plans. South Africa's learnings on just transition, which WRI have just done a very thoughtful and helpful piece on, are worth noting. The process of inclusion in their transition planning was extremely helpful, and they also worked very well across political coalitions in order to make sure that everyone understood what this transition meant for them. Also here in Africa, Senegal's long-term focus on green jobs and the green economy has been in place for some years and evolves as we find out more about what this transition means. And really importantly, we need a learning loop through all of these transition journeys to help us understand what's working. And in my capacity at PACE, I can say that our contribution to scaling the circular economy is as good as the quality and the learnings that we get from all of those who have been front runners. So in summary, therefore, circular economy transitions need to be planned. They need to be supported by effective policies that include the right incentives. And we need to think of circular economy first and foremost as a social technology and not as an environmental challenge, and acknowledge its disruptive potential as well as its beneficial potential. I look very much forward to this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramona, for kickstarting our conversation in this way. I have been looking very, very much forward to introducing our 4 panelists today. A bit like a child looks forward to Christmas, I would say. Our panelists have been selected and they have kindly accepted our invitation, not because they can tell you why we need to accelerate the transition to the circular economy. We think you know that. But because they know from their own experiences what it takes to advance, adjust, and a job reach circular economy in their countries. So with us today, we have 4 panelists. We have Mr. Oliver Boachie, who has just joined. Let me just check because there were some technical difficulties. Is that true, Oliver? Are you there?
Yes, I'm with you.
Wonderful. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Mr. Boachie is currently serving as the Special Advisor to the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation for the Republic of Ghana, where he advises the Minister on issues related to technology, innovation, resource and environmental management, and sustainable development. He also assists the ministry in the formulation of policies and implementation strategies. And that includes strategies and technology. He also assists the ministry's Environmental Protection Agency. He's a member of the Technical Committee of PACE. He's a member of the Technical Committee of the Africa Circular Economy Alliance. And he's the chairman of the Technical Committee of Ghana's National Plastics Action Partnerships, among many other things. Then we have Mr. Rane Vidyadhar. Sri Rane is a veteran trade union leader and social worker of India. He's been actively associated with the trade union movement since 1989. He has helped form the Nhava Sheva Port and General Workers Union, and he's associated with various unions and federations in the port and dock industry in India. And he's also a founder and General Secretary of Alang Socia Ship Recycling and General Workers Association. The reason why I mention this is that that's the first union formed by workers working in the world's largest ship recycling industry. Very first. So in addition to empowering thousands of informal ship recycling workers, Sri Rane has campaigned tirelessly to have India ratify the IMO's Hong Kong International Convention for the safe and environmentally sound recycling of ships. Next is Mr. Dan Reid. Dan is the Director of Environment and Circularity at the Responsible Business Alliance. The RBA is a coalition of over 200 electronics-based companies that collaborate on traditional and also on increasingly circular supply chain challenges. At RBA, Dan develops tools and creates programs that help all tiers of supply chains improve their capacity and ability to meet these increasingly challenging demands in carbon, energy, water, and waste management systems. Through the RBA's circular materials programs, Dan collaborates with a range of companies and across industries to ensure that more secondary materials are recaptured in what we call reverse supply chains, using environmentally and socially responsible practices that align with the same due diligence and assurance mechanism that the industry exhibits in its manufacturing practices or forward supply chains. Last, but certainly not least, of our four panelists is Mr. Dozie Igweilo, who's an entrepreneur and an innovator. He's the founder and CEO of QuadLoop. His electronics manufacturing startup company turns e-waste into solar-powered lanterns and is based in Lagos, Nigeria. Dozie created his first solution called Bliss Solar Lamp in 2017, which is an eco-friendly lamp that provides rural and low-income communities with clean energy. In mid-2020, QuadLoop received a $10,000 grant from the Nigerian Climate Innovation Center. This is our lineup. This is our experts, and these are our heroes, our champions of circularity. Back to you, Mr. Boachie. In Ghana, your president, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, has launched the Hazardous and Electronic Waste Control Act, which governs e-waste management in your country. And your government is collaborating on a number of initiatives and programs to reduce waste and increase circularity, including with GIZ and UNEP and many other partners. Could I kindly ask you to share a little more information about these initiatives and your work over the years to support companies in the transition to circularity, as well as to protect vulnerable workers in the circular economy, particularly those in the informal sector?
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, let me express my gratitude for the opportunity you've granted me to participate on this panel discussion. Indeed, we do have a great deal of confidence in the transition to circular economy in Ghana, and we've made a very firm commitment to ensure that that happens. That means that, in general, we also believe that the transition will create.
Okay, sir.
We believe that the transition will create many well-paying jobs. And so we believe that once that happens, everybody will have access to jobs. But that is the general thing. And that doesn't mean that government shouldn't do anything. Indeed, government has a very, very big role in making sure that this transition is just and that we don't leave anybody behind. In Ghana, what we are trying to do, first of all, is to create a framework for the transition to circular economy. And we are starting with plastics. You mentioned electronic waste. And we are also looking at food systems. We are looking at textiles and so on. But we wanted to start with one sector as a pilot so that we don't make too many mistakes, and that whatever mistakes we make with plastics, we will be able to learn from it and make sure that the other sectors are covered in a more efficient manner. And so this framework that we are creating has a gender equity and inclusion component, which is very, very key in everything that we are doing. That means that we have to engage experts right from the beginning to look at gender issues in the planning and execution of every activity, in this sector transition. Indeed, one of our partners, the government of Canada, has hired a full-time consultant to be a member of the management of the National Plastics Action Partnership, which you mentioned. And their job is to ensure that there's nothing we do that doesn't have a serious consideration for gender equity and inclusivity. The other thing is that on the steering board of the National Plastics Action Partnership, we do have sitting on the board entities, again, who are looking at the interest of gender issues. WCEF is a well-known global organization that is responsible for this. And so WCEF sits on the board of for NPAP to make sure that everything that we do, their interests are taken into consideration. In addition to all of this, the integration of the informal sector is also a key thing that we know is very, very important, because in Ghana, about 70% of the actors within the plastic value chain are in the informal sector. And so we want to make sure that we are taking concrete steps that will bring them into the mainstream. And as you know, in that sector, a huge percentage of that is women and members of other vulnerable segments of our society. So these are some of the things that we are doing in Ghana to ensure that we have a just transition that leaves nobody behind.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boachie, and very inspiring to hear how you are incorporating gender equality, because from my experience, it's when you apply a gender lens that you really are putting humans at the center, and you ensure that the transition works for the people who work in the circular economy. Very inspiring. Thank you. I'll come back to you a little later. For now, let's turn to Brother Rane. Sri Rane, it's been 4 years, I think, since I met you in Alang, and we jointly visited the ship recycling yards. And we saw the huge ships being cut to pieces by workers in the yards on the beach. Now, the operations in Alang are good for circularity, right? Because up to 95% of the precious steel is recycled. But as we saw, as you see almost every day, the operations are not necessarily optimal or good for workers and the environment. Could I kindly ask you to share from your rich personal experience how you have mobilized and organized thousands of workers and helped them improve their safety and health and other working conditions in this important ship recycling economy?
Thank you, Brother Casper. Hope I'm audible. And it's right that you visited, and after that you have organized a workshop by ILO in September 2019, which still we are making the demands with the government and employer to implement these workshops recommendations. Thank you once again, and for all of us, namaskar from Shipbreaking Workers of India. The namaskar is our way of greeting. See, this shipbreaking industry, as such, it's a end of this shipbuilding. So, is economy. If we talk about the circular economy, it starts from shipbuilding, goes to shipping companies, then influenced on port and also seafarers, and then come to shipbreaking. But shipbreaking or ship recycling is not an end. So after shipbreaking or recycling, there is called a downstream industry, which includes the re-rolling mills, furnishing mills, shops, transport workers, scrap dealers. So these are the ends of this, in fact, the shipbuilding industry. The India Alang is a village in the state of Gujarat, and we are having a world largest ship recycling industry. There are 182 yards, but at the moment, 131 active yards we have. The recycling capacity of these yards are 6 million gross tonnage capacity. Number of vessels recyclers in this year, 22, 132, and last year, 207 vessels we have broken. Government get 500 to 700 crores of rupees by tax, plot rent, custom duty, water sales, GST, etc. And the workforce directly involved in shipbreaking is 35 to 40,000 shipbreaking workers. And the downstream industry, which I mentioned, 100,000 shipbreaking workers are involved. So this is the size of industry. We organize these shipbreaking workers. Since 2003, we started this mission, and our partners were Industry All Global Union and FNV Netherlands, and locally ASSRGWA, the affiliate of Hindu Mazdoor Sabha, our national centers. And we got, we can say, a success, good success. And this strategy we adopted: think globally, act locally, because this is, though this industry is on the shore of a village in Gujarat, but it influences international shipbuilding capacity. We are breaking the whole world's ship in Alang. How we started? It's a simple way that stronger should help the weaker. The port and dock workers in India, we have a very strong legacy. And Union of the Port and Dock Workers, which is old union, 102 years we have completed, has changed their constitution and decide to extend the hand of cooperation to the shipbreaking workers. Then we decide union should be visible at workplace. So we arrange a frequent visit to the workplace and started from simple things, provision of basic needs like potable drinking water, sanitation, first aid, issues of occupational health and safety, issues of social security, awareness on labor legislation. By this way, the union was visible in the yard. By doing this, I will be very short because time constraints are there. So what we achieved till today, we have a strong workers' voice at workplace. This we can watch.
Yeah.
We have a more than 80% green yards. See, when we started in 2003, the green yards, people will supply. How it's possible to have a green yards in shipbreaking, but we achieved that. More than 80% yards are green yards. Personal protective equipments are provided to every workman. There is no child labor. improved occupational health and safety issues. The social security measures like Provident Fund, ESIC are now mandatory. Then special law for this industry has been enacted by the government of India. And as Casper said, the government of India has ratified the IMO's Hong Kong Convention. And before ratifying the Hong Kong Convention, the facilities of ship recycling has been upgraded. Most of they are the green.
Yes.
We are aiming to tripartite social dialogue for these ship breaking workers. Because the stakeholders have been identified in various laws. ILO is very much active, involved in shipbreaking. In last month only, the ILO chief, Dagmar Walter, along with her colleague visited, and we kept a huge rally on Alang and assembly of the workers, visit of green yards, and 2 workshops were there. And ILO is working seriously how to extend a hand to shipbreaking industry for the shipbreaking workers. We are planning to have industry-wide safety committees, which are not there. Safety committees are there, but it is yard-wise committees where unions' influence is very less. So we are trying to plan the industry-wide safety committee and strengthening the mechanism for tripartite social dialogue. That is what we are talking with the country. And the other group, downstream industry workers, 100,000 workers are working in various small industries, downstream industries. So we are planning to have access to them for a social protection by providing them such government scheme like E-Shram, Prime Minister Jan Dhan Yojana, social economic survey we are planning to organize, and training on occupational health and safety. These are certain plans by which I stop here because of the time constraint. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rane, for this inspiring story and these amazing results you were sharing with us. I think you're reminding us all that as we plan for the future, as we call for policies to accelerate the transition to the circular economy, the work in the circular economy will be carried out by workers, and that there's an urgent need to make sure that that the human rights of workers to have a safe and healthy working environment is respected. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Allow me now to turn to Dan Reid from the RBA. Dan, when we met just a few weeks ago, I think it was, at the Responsible Business Association's super successful Responsible Business Forum, you and I spoke about ways to advance human rights and decent work in the circular economy and reverse electronics supply chains. Could I kindly ask you to share with all here the latest developments in your work in providing business-oriented solutions to address the let's say, the challenge of simultaneously advancing the circular economy and respecting human rights, labor rights, and environmental standards?
Of course, thank you, Casper, for the introduction. And it's not very often I get called a hero as a panelist, but I certainly feel like I've met many of the other panelists just hearing your stories at other conferences. So happy to be amongst such good company. Yes, so I can speak very much from kind of the corporate perspective of circular economy and circular supply chains and e-waste. The Responsible Business Alliance is a coalition of about 220 electronics-based companies. Many of them are brands, but also many of their suppliers, component manufacturers, semiconductors, and companies like that. And the whole coalition is focused around making sure that their supply chains respect human rights, respect local environments, and provide, decent jobs that are adequately safe and healthy. Our work for over a decade now has focused very much on the manufacturing of those products throughout the supply chain and at every component and process. And as many of these companies and brands look to make their traditional linear supply chains more circular, they are very keenly aware to make sure that these new processes that are being incorporated into their supply chain also have the same level of adequate health and safety protection and dignified work. And many of these companies admittedly have struggled over time to do this because they're going about it and implementing it usually on their own. There's two major areas of risk that many companies face when they're trying to make their supply chain more circular. The first is making sure that as they dispose of their products at the end of their useful life, that they're processed and disposed of in a legal way first and foremost, but obviously in a way that also supports decent work. And then the other side is as they want to incorporate reclaimed or recycled materials into their new products, they want to make sure that they're sourcing from scrap production that comes from the same dignified and responsible business practices. So there's two significant business risks, kind of both ends of the current linear economy where they're trying to bend and make the connection. And as I mentioned, many of them are going about this kind of on their own. They, oftentimes conduct audits or try to do traceability, on their supply chains to make sure that products aren't being dumped into developing economies or supporting, improper jobs. And it's a challenge, I think, for many of them because, one, it's inefficient to go about it by themselves, but also they recognize that the future of e-waste processing very much needs to involve informal economies and workers. That, of course, is a challenge as a business because formal businesses like to do operations with other formal businesses. And so, they recognize that it would be incorrect or improper to exclude these participants from a future economy, but at the same time, they need to make sure that there's some level of assurance that these jobs, whether it be in a formal sector or an informal sector, really are providing adequate protection for the worker themselves. And I wish that I had a solution to this. If I did, I would have my own panel. But I'll just say there's lots of efforts that are in this space, and it's sessions like this that really help companies engage on the topic, see how it's done in other sectors and in other parts of the world, and that inspire these companies to come to the table and really talk about what realistically is the right way to do this to make sure that everyone is involved as their supply chains change into circular supply chains, but also as we truly build a more circular economy around electronics products.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dan. And what I find so inspiring when it comes to your work is that, the circular economy is not new. It's been with us for centuries, if not millennia. What is new and what you're working on is that up until recently, there were very dispersed efforts to apply environmental, social, and governance assurance mechanism to the reverse supply chain, if you like. But now through your efforts and through your programs at RWA, we're seeing a convergence about how to apply the assurance mechanisms that protect workers, protect the environment in the forward supply chain to the reverse supply chain. So keep up the great work. And then you also mentioned the challenges that enterprises face, right? And no better segue into the next speaker. It is a great pleasure to reintroduce you, Mr. Igweilo. As I mentioned at the beginning, your innovative business model focuses on reuse, which goes beyond collection for recycling. So you're actually taking something that was previously waste and you're giving it a new life. I can think of nothing more beautiful. Could I kindly ask you to share with us your experiences in terms of simultaneously advancing reuse and job creation? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Casper, and it's an honor to be here. Yeah, my name is Dozie Igweilo. I'm the founder of QuadLoop. So let me just start by saying, growing up in Lagos as a teenager, I've always found value in discarded items. While I was in secondary school, I usually pick items from a radio store and try and create something from it. So it's something that I really love doing, right? Yeah. So looking at the circular economy model, it's something that here in Africa is just starting to gain some momentum. And having this decent workplace around the circularity model is something that young people are finding very, very attractive, because we are currently in a country that almost half of the youth are jobless, right? So what we did is that we had to look inward and see how we could try and generate income, create jobs through circularity. This is what brought us about how to build our product, which is the solar lantern that we currently have in the market. You know, initially it was more like, hey, let's build a product that will help us power communities that are vulnerable, off-grid communities. But we found out that components such as PCB board, switches, LEDs, and the likes are kind of very expensive. You know, bringing them from China, trying to considering the logistics, the forex, and whatnot. So we decided to look inward. So at first, we approached, there's a center called Computer Village here in Lagos, where all the computer scraps goes to, right? So we started getting some components from them. Some such components includes discarded laptop batteries, which we use to power the product, right? So at some point, we found out that there are just two formal waste collectors in Nigeria, Hikni and Itera. So we went to approach them and see how we could leverage their waste to build. So interestingly, we found out other components that are very, very fascinating, such as plexiglass, TV screens, wires, and they have them such in abundance, right? So what we did is that, okay, hey, why don't we build from waste as opposed to build from imported components? So this is what brought us about building the lantern. So let me just show you. Maybe I digress a little bit from the question, but I'm just showing this.
Yeah.
So this is the lantern. It's made from 70% electronic waste. It provides a basic lighting, and it has a USB charging port. It works with a portable 10-watt solar panel.
Yeah. It's
right?
super nice. So you're creating light from waste. I love that.
Exactly. So, but beyond that, we made sure that we did the circularity model from scratch, whereby the batteries can be swapped easily, like a remote control. You know, the same way you have your TV remote control that when it gets bad, you could just take out the batteries and swap them. So that's how we designed this, not to allow the product to go to waste, because typically the materials that actually goes to waste in a period of time are the batteries, right? So we designed this product to enable circularity. So yeah, it's been an interesting one. And I will tell you that in terms of our employees, we try to encourage the young people more, employing young hands, male and female, making them realize the opportunities that are around the circular economy in Africa at large, and giving them the flexibility that allows them to do what they love. So what I do per se is that we have a collaboration with Hikni currently. We work from the same warehouse with Hikni that allows us to pick their waste and generate and turn them to products. So my job is to take a walk at the warehouse every week. Each time there's a new set of junk, I look at the components, look at the materials, dismantle them and harvest things that we could use to build this product or future products. So one of the opportunities currently that I can find in the circular economy in Nigeria is the fact that most repair companies or repair shops, they still depend on components that are being imported from China. And currently, I will tell you for free that these components are not cheap, right? So we can create a business model out of the fact that we could harvest worn out component, not worn out, because typically when you tear them open, most of the components are actually literally just good. We could use these components and put them on a marketplace that allows these repair guys to buy from people like Hickney or like a marketplace. That way, it's going to create more jobs, cut down cost of production, cost of repairs, and what's not. So these are the things we're looking to start implementing from 2023.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So in fact, what you are showing us here is that it's wrong actually to talk about e-waste. We should perhaps talk about e-value and how we can bring out that value, and with that value, create opportunities for entrepreneurs like yourself, but also generate jobs. Yeah. And we are going to open up the floor, the virtual space, to questions from participants now. We have 13 minutes left of our meeting. Allow me just, while you gather your thoughts and get ready with the questions you have out there, allow me just to reflect upon how powerful it is to have in the same space representatives of government, of industry and employers, and of workers. And have you share your solutions and your aspirations together. It gives me hope that we will be able to shape a circular economy that works for all. While the questions are coming in, and the colleagues, Pratik, Ray, and others are feeding them to me virtually, allow me to ask you, Dozie, just a follow-up question. I know your journey has not always been easy. Starting up your own enterprise can be very daunting. What kind of support would you need from government for more businesses like yourself to grow and to expand and create even more jobs and opportunities?
Yeah, so from the production standpoint, machines are one of the problems we are currently facing, because there are some parts that we don't have the machines, so we outsource the parts as a service to other companies. And these people charge us a certain amount that falls to the cost of production as well as cost of sale. So if we get some certain machines that enables us to cut down our cost of production, that would be very helpful. If we get machines that will help us to employ more persons, in other words, scale up our manufacturing and leverage or harness more waste, that would be totally helpful. So this thing boils around funding, basically. So funding and technical expertise is one of the two of the things that we really need.
Access to finance and access to technology, I think sums that up. There's no questions coming in so far, but let me would anyone like to raise their virtual hand and ask a question? I don't see any, but please keep mulling them over and don't be shy. In the meantime, I would like to ask you, Brother Rane, a question. So you have done what very few thought possible, which is organize tens of thousands of formerly informal workers in the ship recycling. What can we learn from your experiences in organizing these workers and giving them voice that we can use and adapt to other sectors? In other words, where are you going next?
Thank you, Casper. See, we are the trade unionist, and in my presentation, I said about this is an example that stronger helping weaker. So now, by using this strategy, shipbreaking workers who were weaker last decade, now becoming strong, they have their voice. Now it is the duty and responsibility of the shipbreaking workers and their union to help the downstream industry, to use their good offices, use their experience use their union office for the betterment of downstream industry. This is our first target. Number two, as labor laws are there, industry is green, stakeholders have been identified. The ship recycling industry, we are aiming the tripartite social dialogue where the role of government and role of employers association is very vital. In 2003, if the fatal accident happened, only 10 to 15,000 rupees, a meager amount, was given to the relative, and they have been asked to go along. But at the same industry now, last month, the fatal accident happened, and as union intervened, 21 lakhs of Indian rupees we have paid. It's a huge amount. It's a very good amount to the next skin of the worker. So now we want to use this experience in other sectors.
I see. So are you going up or down? I don't know which direction, the value chain there. Will you be going from the ship recycling yards on the beach to the backyards where they roll the steel and then maybe eventually into electronics as well?
Right. And Government of India is now targeting this Alang as a vehicle recycling hub.
Yes.
If it is a vehicle recycling hub and there is another yard in Jamnagar called Sachna Ship Recycling Yard,
yes.
So then we will target these two areas also, downstream and vehicle recycling.
It seems obvious to me because with the population growth in India, the growing middle classes and the economic growth, domestically alone, tons and tons of waste will be generated. So thinking ahead and thinking, how can we turn this on its head? How can we use the value of the recycled materials and make sure that it's recycled in an adequate way that doesn't harm the environment, but could create jobs for workers. So I think you will have a key role in that, and your work cut out for you. Allow me to turn to Melanie, who has posted a question in the chat, and thank you very much for that. And that's directed to you, Mr. Boachie, and any other panelists who would like to pick it up. Could you tell us more about how you manage the inclusion of marginalized group of society in your initiatives to advance circularity? There's also a related question, which is about, do you see trade-offs in this space? Over to you, Mr. Boachie.
Yes, thank you very much, Melanie. As I mentioned before, my initial submission, making sure that those who operate largely in the informal sector are taken into serious consideration in everything that we do. One way of doing it is making sure that these marginalized groups are organized in, I would say, how do I put it? In the case of the ship workers in India, they have unions. Here in Ghana, unions are not very strong, but you can have groups represented by those who I would say are more capable of speaking on their behalf instead of leaving it to individuals to speak on their own behalf. And in the case of women, for example, WCEF that I mentioned earlier is a very, very powerful institution that is known globally to do that work effectively. The people who are picking plastic waste, for example, they also have their own organizations. The Association of Sachet Plastic Collectors is a very big organization in Ghana. And what we do is that first we make sure that we provide equipment for them to be able to do their work efficiently. So working with companies like Nestle and Coca-Cola, we've provided several tricycles for them to be able to go to places, pick the waste, and then bring them to aggregators who buy from them on a regular basis. Also, we provide personal protection equipment, especially during the pandemic. We knew that these vulnerable groups needed special protection so that they don't get contaminated with diseases and other things. And that's something that we have done with UNDP, UNIDO, and others to make sure that these people are protected.
Yes.
Also, as I said before, we make sure that everything that we do, we sit down with them, we engage them, we want to hear their stories, and every plan that we take or we make sure that their interests are taken into consideration.
I see.
Another thing that we are trying to do is actually provide some kind of financing for them so that they can scale up whatever they are doing and be able to bring many more people in. And the project that we are doing with UNIDO, for example, about 60% of the funding has been allocated to providing financial support to these small and medium-sized enterprises so that they can scale up and employ more people. So these are some of the mechanisms that we are using to make sure that we are not leaving any of them behind as we transition to circular economy.
Thank you, sir. Colleagues, friends, it's time to wrap up our session for today. Thanks to you, Melanie, for that question. Thanks to all of you, the excellent panelists, for sharing your stories, your experiences with us. Each one of your experiences have highlighted how essentially it's up to us. We have it in our power to shape a circular economy and ensure that it works for all. We've heard it is possible to create light from waste. We've heard it's possible to create jobs from waste, a new generation of sustainable circular businesses from waste. And we have also heard of efforts to make sure that those jobs are green and decent. We've heard it's possible to organize hitherto informal workers in the recycling sector to assist them in improving their own situation and livelihoods. And we've heard how this is particularly effective and possible when it's supported by what I would call a smart mix of enabling investments and enabling policies, when it's supported by measures to ensure compliance with human rights and environmental and labor standards, and when it's accompanied with gender equality policies and a gender lens that makes sure that whenever we do, we think through what consequences, what impact, what opportunities there are for the women and men that make the circular economy work. So while I think we can end this call on an optimistic note, thanks to our circularity champions, our everyday heroes, as I took the liberty of calling you today, there is a lot that still needs to be done to bring out a circular economy and to ensure that the transition to the circular economy becomes a just transition. And here I just want to plug the ILO guidelines for just transition from 2015, but perhaps even more relevant today. These guidelines set out the policies and actions. It's the roadmap for employers, for workers, for governments to ensure that we scale up the transition and make sure that it's just and it works for all. As Oliver said, that we leave no one behind. So to accelerate this transition, my final point is just that it's of utmost importance that we make sure that there are strong partnerships and continuous dialogue with and among those who have most at stake and those with the power to bring about systemic change. And here, of course, I think of governments, of employers, and of workers. Those we have heard from today on our call. And let me end this session by again thanking you all and to say and to confirm that the ILO, led by our newly appointed Director General, Mr. Gilbert Humbo from Togo, is firmly committed to working with all of you to ensure decent work and social justice for all. With that, I thank you and wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for your valuable contributions. We will post this session that has been recorded and send you the link. Please help share the excellent messages that we all contributed today.
Thanks.